Hey guys, Daniel from Team Kuribrohs here, and today we're going to talk about speed dueling. So, for those of you who don't know, speed dueling is a new format for the YuGiOh trading card game. It's kind of think like YuGiOh in 2003, but with a little bit of anime twist. So, the way the format works is both players have 20 to 30 card decks with 0 to 5 card extra decks. In addition to the normal rules, instead of drawing 5 cards to start, you draw 4 cards. Instead of 5 monster card zones and 5 spell and trap card zones, there are only 3 for each player. There is no extra monster zone, and additionally, there is no main phase 2. Okay, so for the most part, we're seeing the kind of gameplay of the normal game being slimmed down a little bit. What is added is, in addition to the normal rules, each player can also choose a duel skill, and these are special cards that you set face down at the start of the game, and then they have different abilities. So, for example, Pegasus has access to the card It's a Toon World After All. No, it's just It's a Toon World. But, so, it's on screen now. And It's a Toon World, at the start of the game, you flip it face up, and it acts as Toon World. So you just get to start with that in play. It was really crazy. Because toons are really strong in this format. But then you have other cards such as My Valentine's Tribal Synergy, where there are conditions, and when the conditions are met, the card is flipped face up. So you get kind of an extra level of hidden information, which I think is quite interesting. And the cards do have a lot of kind of an anime feel to it. There are certain ones which, when you take an amount of damage, you can just search your deck for any card instead of your normal draw. So that's really cool. But the thing with speed dueling is that it's actually been in development for a very long time. So the first sign of speed dueling was actually all the way back in 2008. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, there is an arcade machine for YuGiOh called Duel Terminal. It's no longer supported now, but it was released in Japan and America. And basically with the Japanese release, there was a format called speed dueling. And in the Japanese version, you had 10 card decks, you had 3 card hands, and I believe it was 2,000 or 3,000 life points. But so all the way back then, we have the first iteration of speed dueling. It got changed about a bit when it got brought over to the American machines. It kept the deck size, but there was 4,000 life points and 4 card hand. So we're basically at speed dueling at this stage. But yeah, so after the dual terminal machines, there wasn't much heard from speed dueling up until, I believe, March 2016. You could possibly consider YuGiOh BAM to be similar to speed dueling, but we won't mention BAM. But yeah, so March 2016, the OCG, Japan, introduced speed dueling as a paper format. This was during Arc 5. The speed duel board was 3 monster card zones, 3 spell and trap card zones, but in addition, there was also the 2 pendulum zones. And in this version, there was still a main phase 2. So it's getting closer to what we are going to see in the TCG, but you can see that there's still some issues. Pendulum zones in particular makes it seem like the format would be a very fast format, and I don't believe it was super supported in terms of organized play, but that could just be conjecture. But yeah, so moving on from that, Duel Links was put into beta in September of that year and then released in either December or January. So 2016, start of 2017, that's when Duel Links appeared. And Duel Links, of course, uses the exact same rule set as speed dueling uses, to the point that it also introduced the character skills. So in Duel Links, the character skills are built into the game, and you have a character as your avatar, and that character gives you access to their skills. So that is the kind of build-up to where Duel Links is now. But there is one thing that I haven't been able to find information about anywhere on the internet, so I thought it would be super interesting to look at it with you guys, and that is that in October of 2017, Konami actually reached out to organized play partners and tournament organizers in order to trial and get feedback on speed dueling. So we're going to look at some of the speed duel decks that were given out at those events and kind of take a look at what they were and how they compare to the modern ones. And yeah, we're just gonna jump into luck dice now. Welcome to Speed Dueling. So here we have one of the 6 trial decks. So there were 6 altogether. 5 of them had 20 cards and 1 of them had 21 cards. So I'm just going to go through this and I'm going to discuss the deck as we go through. So this is the Kaiba deck. From what I saw with the deck, it had issues where it has a lot of high level monsters that have difficulty kind of getting onto the board. Like if you resolve your Blue Eyes in this format or your Tyrant Dragon, then you're in a good position and you have things like Kaiba Man and Cost Down, Fleet of Summoning Dragons to try and cheat them into play. But overall, as you can see, you only have 1 of each of those cards. So the deck struggled in that regard. It's really interesting though, because once you add the dual skills, the dual skill Dragon Caller for the Kaiba deck means that if you have Fleet of Summoning Dragon in your hand, you can reveal it, or if you normal summon Lord of Dragons, you can search a Fleet of Summoning Dragon. So Fleet lets you search Lord of D lets you search Fleet, and so suddenly the new version of this deck, the one that is being published for Speed Dueling, is really scary, because every deck in the format has to be able to deal with 1 to 2 massive dragon monsters on turn 1. So that definitely improved a lot from the changes. The second deck that we have is the Pegasus deck. So we're seeing a lot of similar cards here. I don't believe Rogue Doll. I don't know if this is in the final version. But yeah, so the Pegasus deck focuses on tunes and on Relinquished as well. So some really nice tune reprints here. One of the issues that this deck had was that in the test versions, I mean, you have 2 Toon Worlds in the main deck, but if players didn't open the Toon Worlds, then the deck would be super low impact. And this is fixed with the card I mentioned earlier. It's a Toon World, where Pegasus can begin the game with Toon World in play. In fact, this is so impactful that pretty much all of the decks have access to back row removal in this format, just to deal with that. The third deck is Zombies, and this is one that is not in the Speed Duel starter deck kits. This was replaced with the Joey deck. As far as I understand, there's a chance that zombie cards are going to appear in the Speed Duel booster pack. But yeah, so here are a bunch of the cards. This deck was interesting. It has like a very low power ceiling, as you can see. Like its best monsters are level 5 and 6s. But it has Michizur, and it has some ways to kind of like cheat monsters into play and inspiration. So even though it has like a very low ceiling, this is probably one of the most consistent decks out of all of them. It'll be interesting to see what dual skill is introduced for that. Then we have Gravekeepers, which is a Shizu's deck. Gravekeeper's Oracle is an insane card. I don't think it was as good in these test decks, but in the actual Speed Dueling kits, I think this is like a really impactful card. Here, the Gravekeeper deck suffers from just kind of... its cards just don't really do much in this format. You don't have Necro Valley in the deck, so you're dealing with your Gravekeepers being their normal printed stats. And at that point, they're a lot less appealing. Necro Valley won't be in the first release of the set anyway, but again, Oracle is really strong, and depending on what skills you have, it might be worthwhile playing. Also, it's just great fun playing Gravekeepers. Then the next deck we have is Harpies. This deck becomes insane with the Speed Dueling kits. The deck's already okay. You have 3 Harpy Ladies. This Harpy Lady becomes Harpy Lady 1 in the kit, as far as I know. Then you have some Harpies and Amazon S cards. You have Sonic Shooters and Blade Flies, which don't really do much here. Hunting Ground is great. Egotist is great. But yeah, there's quite a few cards here. This, even in this version, is pretty decent, because things like Cyber Shield are actually just very impactful when you're playing battles where attack points matter. But overall, this became a lot stronger when you get the draw power from Tribal Synergy. And then the final deck is Yugi deck, and I think this is the weakest of the lot, unfortunately. So you're gonna see that there's a bunch of Yugi's kind of iconic cards, but when you put a bunch of Yugi's iconic cards into the one deck, suddenly you have a lot of synergies, and if you don't draw your synergy, then you have a pretty unplayable hand. But yeah, this deck definitely also appreciates the introduction of skill cards. We're just going to take a look at this Chimera. So this is the last card in the set. It's EN 107. So as you can see, the borders on these cards are very faint compared to a normal card. Just let me grab one now. So let's take this Dupe Frog, for example. This Dupe Frog has nice dark grey borders, whereas this has light grey borders. And then the text box is also very light. We also see that the Chimera doesn't have any stamp on it. So this is really interesting to see. This is one of the few official cards that I've seen where an entire print have no stamps on them. But yeah, we're gonna cut back to me. So yeah, that is the Speed Duel decks. I think they're really interesting. They're one of the first times that I have seen these kind of pseudo proxy cards, these official, not tournament legal cards. It shows a really good engagement between Konami and its customers. And it also is just a really interesting look to see a bit of the design process of how you get from the idea of speed dueling to a finished product. So thank you all for joining us for this discussion. Please do let me know what you think about speed dueling. What do you think of these decks? What do you think of the decks that are coming out? Are you excited to play the format? Additionally, we hit 2,500 subscribers recently, and we want to thank you all so much for that. So from myself and the rest of Kuribrohs, thank you very much for joining us. Please do like, subscribe, and share the video if you liked it. Cool. Daniel out.